Welcome everybody to our ESG update 2022. We are very happy that you join us today. We have a lot of news to share. We have just published our sustainability reports a couple of days ago, and we are very excited today that you join us for a presentation. We have a lot of experts in the call, and you will see that we are moving forward on our path. I want to inform everybody that this session will be recorded except for the Q&A session, which will follow after the presentations. And before we go into the matters, I will give you the cautionary statements. On the next slide, I'd like to draw your attention to the cautionary language, which is included in our safe harbor statement, as well as in the materials that we have distributed today. With this, let's have a quick look at the agenda of the meeting. We will have a keynote in the beginning from Matthias Berninger. He's the head of Public Affairs, Science and Sustainability and HSE. I will give you a very quick glimpse on where we stand on transparency and ratings. I'm leading ESG external engagement and performance reporting. I will then hand over to Frank Terhorst, who is the head of strategy and sustainability in the crop science division. And he will talk about the topic of climate and ecosystems he will then hand over to Daniela Foster. She's leading in our consumer health division, the areas of sustainability. And she will talk about food security. She will then pass the ball to Klaus Runge. He's leading market access, public affairs and sustainability in the pharmaceuticals division. And then we will hear from Cristina Alonso about sustainability safety. She's leading sustainability, safety, health and environment, about ID, human rights and governance. In the end, we will have, as I said already, a Q&A where we will not have a recording, and I will give you further instructions when we move into the Q&A. With this, I would like to hand over to Matthias to give us the keynote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Klaus, and also from my side, a warm welcome and happy Thursday. In 2019, we started to work on our sustainability strategy. We rolled it out at the end of that year, and it was our goal to ensure that sustainability is fully included in our business strategy. Little did we know back then that a pandemic would hit the world, the globe, and keep us in check for quite a while. And we also didn't anticipate another war in Europe with the second invasion of Russia in the Ukraine in this century. So as a result of that, our vision of health for all and hunger for none has actually increased in importance to a point that we feel quite bullish about integrating sustainability in our strategy, because Bayer as a company is working on these very important topics of health on the one side and food security on the other side. With that, I would like to get to our first of many slides. And I promise it's my only one. So what you can see here is that we as a company feel quite strongly about the role we play in helping the world to deliver against the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. Many of you have seen the tiles of the UN on many presentations, but I do believe what sets Bayer apart from many other companies is that for us, delivering food security, health equity, and also taking care of climate and ecosystems is also good business. We are unapologetic about the fact that we, on the one hand, want to drive sustainability, but on the other hand, also want to develop business strategies that are able to sustain these activities. Let's start with food security. There are 350 million humans on this planet who do not know if and what they will have to eat in the next 7 days. 350 million of the 8 billion humans suffer that situation at the moment. More than double that number is food insecure, but the acuteness of the food and hunger crisis is a result of a pandemic, is a result of climate change, and also a result of the war that basically has cut the Ukrainian food output in half. So the world's bread basket has already severely been hampered by Putin and his aggression. On health equity, there are 4 billion people who do not have access to basic healthcare. Half of the world, many of us on the call can't even imagine that situation, but health equity remains a big topic. And of course, the pandemic has really been shining a spotlight on the challenges in health equity. And then thirdly, we all know that the climate crisis and also the crisis of our ecosystem is an increasing problem. We currently face 55 billion or gigatons of carbon or greenhouse gas emissions that we need to somehow get control over and somehow reduce to zero by mid of this century to ensure that the global temperature doesn't go well above 1.5 degrees Celsius. Currently, the world is on track to be closer to 3 than to 1.5. And that is, of course, a huge challenge that many of our customers, but also the people that suffer from climate-related health issues are facing. In 2019, we set ourselves quite a few initiatives that were revolving around food security, health equity, and climate and ecosystems. And you can see them on the slide. We are, like many companies, very much committed to reduce our own carbon emissions in line with the Science-Based Target Initiative. But we also have set ourselves targets to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions of our customers, the growers around the world. And here in our sustainability report, for the first time, you can see data on the carbon intensity of major crops. And for the first time also in our sustainability report, we talk about the reduction of the environmental impact of crop protection. These are topics where we will hear more from Frank in a second. The support of the smallholder farmers is a really big topic for us. Klaus will share a bit the milestone we have achieved on our 100 million target, because smallholder farmers are one of the backbones of global food security, and they have been suffering big time from both the pandemic as well as the food inflation and the lack of access to key agricultural inputs. We also have seen that the hidden hunger, the lack of access to micronutrients, has become a bigger problem. So our nutrient gap initiative is one of the cornerstone activities which we have started in order to help addressing the challenge of hidden hunger. And we have been focusing in consumer health on serving more people with the whole topic of healthcare. The focus on underserved communities was even more pertinent given the pandemic and the challenges people faced. I personally believe that we have no chance as humanity to even get a shot on reaching the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals without focusing on providing access to modern contraception to everybody who would want them. And here I have to say, again, we made great progress both in our own target, but Klaus will talk later about it. In this case, Klaus will see about the fact that the rest of the industry is also stepping up, which I think is really crucial and drives my optimism that the global target of achieving full access to modern family planning that the SDGs have set out for 2030 can be reached potentially even before. And then, of course, with 8 billion people on the planet and every second not having access to basically affordable pharma products and the basic healthcare, the increase of availability of innovative pharma products is a huge topic for us. I want to close by saying that we have been really working hard on building out this strategy, on ensuring that it's not a CSR strategy, that it's not a classic corporate giving strategy, but really a strategy that drives our innovation, that drives overall our business performance and revenue. We have also been working hard with you as investors on ensuring that the areas where we had weaknesses in our corporate conduct, in our sustainability strategy, on the topics we reported on have been addressed. And I'm hugely grateful for those investors who have stuck with us, who have not divested Bayer in this process, And I'm also thankful for those of you who came back and reinvested in Bayer in the course of the last, I want to say 12 months, especially since we were able to improve some of our sustainability ratings in 2022. Our hope is that we are a destination for investors that really care about sustainability, because we believe as a company we can make a unique difference on many of the problems the world is facing at the moment. Next week, for example, Bayer will be very visible at the first UN conference on water in 46 years. I was in first grade in 1977 when the last one happened. Water is going to be one of those big topics you will hear more about from us. But our goal is that we are both present and relevant on the key topics. And our goal as a company is that we make a difference around the world, especially in those disadvantaged and poorer communities that has been suffering so much as a result of both the pandemic and the war situation that is worrying all of us. I hope you'll be as excited as I am about this strategy, and hand the baton to Klaus with K, who talks a bit about our achievements in 2022.
Thank you, Matthias. Yeah, you have explained the targets that we have set out, the strategy that we have put out a couple of years ago in 2018-19, and we have shared this with you investors for a couple of times. We typically receive positive feedback on the ambition level that we are putting out. There's an upcoming discussion at this point of time, after so many companies have put out their commitments, whether we really deliver or not. Because at this point of time, we can see a new word coming up, which I just learned last week. It's called greenwashing. Companies who have been making commitments and now stop talking about it. We want to be on the opposite side, and we want to show you in the next couple of minutes that we have delivered against what we have promised. And maybe on the next slide, we can take a glimpse, only a glimpse on it. You will hear more details from Frank, from Daniela, and from Klaus, and also from Christina later in this call. But I just want to show you that on the, for example, on the left side, on the promises and the commitments we have made to help people, we are really, really strongly executing against our access targets. You can also see that the numbers that we have reached towards reaching those 100 millions are different. But I can assure you, we are really following business plans here. It's very important. These are business plans which are in execution. And for each of those targets, we are on track. And you can basically also see that in the Access to Medicine Index, we have in the meantime made it into the top 10. It's very important for us to really deliver and to show that we are walking the talk. On the side of environment and the planet, we have one clear topic where we will have to fight. It's a topic where many other companies are struggling as well. It's the Scope 3, the reduction of emissions in Scope 3. This is very clear. While on 1 and 2, Scope 1 and 2, we are really on track. We are so far on track that overall, I think our carbon program can be really seen as a success until this point of time. But we also have to be very clear where we will need to step up going forward. You will hear more details also on how we are addressing our targets in the agricultural space. Matthias has already indicated that the first time we are able to report against crop protection environmental impact reduction, we are down by 14% already. So I think this should give you confidence that we have been putting out targets which are ambitious. Also, the fact that we are on different levels of achievement shows that we have put ambition levels which were not clearly calculatable in 2019, but we make huge efforts to achieve those. And I mean, what I also find very important is, if we talk about this, is that we are very transparent about the challenges that we have. And maybe on the next slide, we can a little bit follow up on transparency. We had quite a number of controversial topics, and we still have controversial topics that we have to deal with. We receive many questions from you in many of the calls we have, in individual conversations that we have with you, and we decided to change the way we talk about it. And we want to address those topics really in a very, very open way. We are putting out reports where we actually talk mostly about what we do to address these topics, not so much about what others do, but really what we do to make an effort to change not only content, but sometimes also perception. We have been putting out a report on the neonics, the insecticides, where we had a red flag from ISS ESG, which has been removed. I think it was also because of the very high level of transparency that we have shown and the massive level of action that we have taken to address these topics. We have removed the red flag on the GMOs in the context of biodiversity and alleged failure of a UN Global Compact last year by MSCI, also with the report where we acknowledge that we should have taken more action in public interaction, that we go forward and that we address this in our governance models that we take going forward. And also in Sustainalytics, I think we are on a medium risk score in the meantime. So we have made quite a number of progress steps in the entire area of ratings, ESG ratings. In the nature benchmark of the World Benchmark Alliance, we have made it to the #1 chemical company. I think this should give some confidence that we are on the right track, not only in the way what we do, not only in the way how we do it, but also in the way how we talk about things, and that we are not running away from any controversial topic going forward. It's very important for us. So whenever you have any questions today or at any point of time, we are happy to receive your feedback, happy to receive your questions, happy to receive your challenges also, because this helps us to improve in the way we do things. We have also published this year the sustainability report. I mentioned it already, but we have also, for easier digestion, published a highlight report, which is basically an excerpt of the most important topics which we want to address. The sustainability report is very important for us because it's going under assurance, under limited assurance. So it's not an easy to read thing. In the meantime, we have reached 140 pages plus. And in order to make it more digestible, it comes along this year with the highlight report, which we are sharing with you. You can find it on our website as well. All these efforts are really addressing the issue of transparency, which I think is a major issue for the entire industry, and we want to be a leader on this topic. This is just a very high-level view on what we have achieved in the last year in terms of addressing the commitments, but also addressing the perception of the company. We have made it to an ESG rating, which is the highest which we had in the last years, and we are quite proud about this, but it's very clear that we will continue on this pathway. With this, I would like now to open the detailed discussion more on where we are working. We go now to the topic of climate and ecosystems, and I would like to hand over to Frank Terhorst.
Thank you, Klaus, and also a warm welcome from my side, everyone. Thank you all for joining. I would like to share with you our progress, which we have been able to establish in both keeping our own house in order, but then, of course, also of how we believe we can make an even bigger impact by really strongly integrating sustainability into our business strategies, and actually the fact that this drives more and more value for the entire company already today, and certainly already so in the future. So let me start by looking first of all to our internal commitments for the entire Bayer Group, and just reassuring you that we stand firm to our commitments. So if we can please move to the next slide. We take broad action with regard to our own carbon footprint, and as shared earlier with you, we are doing this in 2 steps. So the first step is to become climate neutral by the end of this decade, and we are making actually very good progress, and have reconfirmed the goal to reduce our carbon emissions by 42% by the end of this decade, and then until 2050 actually get to a net zero position when it comes to our carbon footprint. We will take a more detailed look on this on the next slide. But let me first talk briefly about our total emissions. And here, as Klaus also shared with you earlier, We made excellent progress also this year, last year I should say 22, and we are now actually are able to show through scope 1, 2, and 3 a 1.1 million tons reduction, 8%, which actually reconfirms us as a company to be on track. So all in all, the key message here is we are one of those companies that is on track with regard to also the 1.5 degree path and commitments with regard to reduction of our carbon emissions in our own operations. So let's take a little bit of a deeper look on the next slide when it comes to the spread between scope 1 and 2 and scope 3. We are actually very pleased with our actual reductions with regard to scope 1 and 2. So have a total 19% reduction compared to baseline, which actually puts us ahead of the plan. Reduced emissions by 4.4%, mainly coming from the purchase of renewable electricity, mainly in Europe so far, but during the next years also with a significant impact by changing and moving on to renewable energy in other parts of the world. And additionally, we had an offset of 450,000 metric tons in 22, which actually brings us now to this good progress and on track for a total 42% reduction in our own operations by the end of this decade. The true challenge lies in our scope 3 emissions, as Klaus also anticipated. After the also pandemic reduction in 21, we actually are basically back to baseline in 22, driven by recovery of the business after the pandemic, after certain supply chain and inventory build up, but of course also a business recovery. So we are working closely with all of our suppliers in particular to now move towards the target of a 12% reduction by the end of this decade. We had a business growth between 19 and 22 of plus 16%. So still feeling good about the path and also the direction, and have actually just started an accelerator program with regard to our scope 3 emissions, working with our key suppliers, direct and indirect key suppliers, to now get to the reductions that we need for our targets here. There are various initiatives planned for that, and we are happy to answer maybe some of more specific questions later in the call. Let me now move to basically the more holistic view that we have on our opportunities as Bayer to become a driver of a more sustainable agricultural system globally on the next slide, please. And I like to really see and divide the opportunities here. One, on the decarbonization opportunities that we as Bayer can enable, and some of you and most of you are aware of our very specific commitments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in key agricultural segments by 30% by the end of this decade. But at the same time, we are intensively looking at the entire ecosystem and also how we can further reduce the environmental impacts of agriculture, and in this case also more specifically crop protection products, and have already also 4 years ago now committed to a 30% reduction of the environmental impact of our chemical crop protection portfolio. What initially was seen as sustainability commitments from us now really more and more develops into opportunities for our businesses. And we in crop science have actually brought together the sustainability teams and the business strategy teams to work as one and actually work towards these opportunities. And it's quite interesting to see how all of these commitments now are strong value and revenue driver for our business. So at the next slide, let's have a look at what we want to do and where we are, where we do support in reducing agricultural greenhouse gas emissions. As I said, our goal is to help farmers across the globe in all major countries and segments to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by 2030. And for that, it was important for us to establish a baseline. And you find a lot more about the metrics and also the methods in our sustainability report. So we now have for all of these 18 most significant crop country combinations established a baseline which ultimately results into a kg CO2 emission by tons of produced crop. So as an average, as you can see here, we have currently 443 kilogram of CO2 emission by ton of produced crop. So for instance, cotton, corn, oilseed rape, or rice. And our crop strategy teams work on holistic solutions now and system approaches to further reduce this by basically introducing new innovation products, new anchor innovation that not only is and has benefits to yield and protecting harvests, as you know, certainly was our focus during the past 10-20 years, but in addition to that, also offers on top value propositions when it comes to greenhouse gas emission reduction. We do have, as you know, an interesting program for farmers already launched in some parts of the world, Foreground, which is actually the very first digital platform that enables farmers to measure, but also actually to work on good economic practices which help them to reduce their carbon emissions. So programs in the US, in Brazil, and in the future also in Europe and India will enable farmers globally to have a specific look and priority to reduce their carbon footprint. And this is more and becomes more and more important since carbon intensity scores are a very relevant additional metric for traders, processors, but also retail to give preference to certain suppliers. So we are enabling our customers, growers around the globe, to have a competitive advantage and to extract more value from their products and from their crops. So with that, let me move to the next point, which is how Bayer and how we can help to reduce the environmental impact of crop protection products on the environment. Early on, more than 4 years ago now, we committed to reduce the environmental impact of our own crop protection products by 30% against a 2014-18 baseline. And during the past years, we have been working also here to establish, first of all, metrics and a model to help us measure against this commitment. What we actually found was a model developed by the Technical University of Denmark, which is measuring actually amongst various areas and elements and dimensions the impact of crop protection products on the environment. And you will find more details in our sustainability report and also on the website of the university about this. And this year, for the first time, we have reached the first milestone in order to really measure our own progress. And what really was very encouraging to see that in the 2 periods we have been now measuring against, we were able to reduce our own environmental impact, though the impact from our own portfolio by 14%, while at the same time we increased our crop protection sales by 15%. So what we do see and do realize that while we have a value share in the global crop protection market, which is a little bit above 20%, the share of our environmental impact of our crop protection portfolio is actually less than 2%. So in other words, our portfolio, our global portfolio, is a lot more environmental friendly than the portfolios of our competitors. What was quite interesting to see is the fact that this initially was indeed, as I said, seen as a strong sustainability commitment from our side, but right now it's more and more turning into a competitive advantage of our portfolio and of Bayer, since many downstream value partners are very much looking into these metrics right now, and are actually prescribing environmental friendly products to their producers and their growers, which is quite encouraging to see, and again is another testimony how these sustainability commitments now have turned into value drivers for our business and a clear competitive advantage of our products, of our portfolio above competition. Another great example of how sustainability now becomes more and more a value driver for our entire business. So maybe let's move to the next slide, where I just wanted to touch base on a couple of other very important elements that we are currently looking at and that we are also integrating into our business strategies. First, biodiversity. Already in 2021, we entered into collaboration with the International Food Policy Research Institute, which helped us to just get more insights on, let's say, regenerative models, algorithms, and metrics. So we are actually right now working on a broader offering, which will position us as a strong leader on the path to a much more regenerative agricultural systems globally. And as part of that, we committed to a very strong forest protection strategy in Brazil, which we have started to implement last year, and where we encourage our customers and growers with a pretty robust framework to refrain from deforestation and really driving a more sustainable agricultural approach in that country, for instance. We are involved in other platforms, but overall, I think we are quite confident of having quite a number of important proposals, measures, projects that help to make agriculture more regenerative by establishing more holistic systems, such as our new smart corn system, driven by short-staged corn, driven by direct seeded rice ambition, which really helps to transform entire agronomic systems, and with that really making a big impact on the footprint and also agriculture in general. Sustainable use, product stewardship initiatives, but also fighting counterfeit fit is and remains a strong priority. We are very proud that we also in 22 were able to work with growers and farmers around the globe to better train them and discuss with them about the use of our products. In total, more than 3.4 million farmers globally participated in these training and discussion sessions. Last but not least, water. Matthias already shared with you our strong ambition in that area too, and our participation in next week's conference of the United Nations. Also here again, we are right now linking a significant commitment when it comes to water to a concrete solution to our customers. You will hear us talk about our direct seeded rice ambition a lot more in detail during the coming weeks and months. In a nutshell, we have technologies, we have anchor innovation, which will enable us to transform the way rice is produced in many parts of the world, and actually enabling rice growers, rice farmers to produce more yield with significantly less water usage. We are talking about a 40% reduction, and at the same time also a significantly lower carbon or methane emission by at least 45%. So it is just one great example is if you look at agriculture more as a system, if you are able as a company to establish a complete new agronomic system, you really can make a big difference in the total footprint. And next week we will also talk about then a concrete water commitment from our side, where we will help to improve water usage per kilogram of produced rice by 25% in 2030. So another strong example of how the sustainability dimension actually can be fulfilled and will open new business opportunities for us as a company. So doing the right thing for the globe, but at the same time also driving our business. Which brings me to my last slide. Almost, and a lot of that is linked by our digital ambition. Our digital capabilities, our digital platform are a strong enabler for us to bring all these aspects together. So our data-driven and digital innovations are the basis to actually combine agronomic benefits of our products with sustainability benefits and offer new solutions to our customers during the next years to come. And some of you may have seen actually the announcement yesterday with our strategic partner Microsoft, where actually we have extended that ambition not only to our own business, but now to the entire industry, where Microsoft and ourselves have teamed up and have partnered to provide some of the insights we have, some of the digital capabilities we have to further digitalize and strengthening and also making more sustainable the entire value chain in agriculture and in food production. So I want to conclude here. So want to leave you with the message. We are strongly committed to our sustainability targets more than ever, see more opportunities actually, and are working on more commitments. And at the same time, see great business opportunities, because we are the company that is able to combine different technology platforms, technology stacks into a more holistic offering that is driving sustainability, but also business for our company. Thank you very much. And Klaus, back to you.
Good. So let's move to the health equity part for the moment and then go back to food security in a minute. Also, a warm welcome from my side, and thanks to all the colleagues here on the call for the collective effort to bring the sustainability efforts and agenda into action. If we move to the next slide, you see that health equity is really far from being a reality. Yeah, Matthias alluded to it in his ingoing remarks. We have crossed the 8 billion mark last November, according to UNFPA, in terms of people living on the planet. When I was born in 75, it's just been half the population. And you can imagine that this has caused a significant stress on often underdeveloped healthcare systems across the globe. And it actually results in more than 50% of the world's population not being in a position to have a health insurance to even cover basic needs. You see here in the graph the relationship between the per capita income measured as gross national income and the health expenditure. And you see wealthy industry nations in the upper right-hand corner, whereas on the lower left, you see that there is way less room to invest into health of populations in other geographies. And that really also trickles down into lower life expectancy in many geographies. So you see a linkage between lower affluence and lower income levels across the world. So it is an issue that we are really ready to tackle with all the solutions and products we have at hand. And if we look into the next slide, you see that one of our 100 million goals and that we have set out as part of the sustainability agenda is to really help people access our self-care products in underserved communities. So we want to reach 100 million by 2030 to help them lead a healthier life, maintain their livelihood, and we've made steadily significant progress against this goal in the last few years. We have already impacted 49 million people living in underserved communities, plus an additional 21 million in India, coming to a total of 70 million in 2022. This is really an exciting trajectory that we have, a rapid uptake that Daniela and her team, the Consumer Health Division, have been able to drive towards. And Daniela will talk later about the nutrient gap initiatives and other components which really had a significant contribution to that number. So, but there are more opportunities to accelerate access to our products in certain geographies and communities, and it will also help drive our business. So when we talk about healthcare and self-care in particular, we see that self-care can really save global healthcare systems billions of dollars annually. So there are recent research studies that approximate the savings that we can achieve with self-care products to roughly $120 billion annually. And it could even grow as far as to 180 billion. So this is a business opportunity, but also a call for us to action to really make our products affordable, available, and accessible. Our role is really twofold. On the one hand, we have to improve self-care policies. According to the World Bank, the healthcare costs as a percentage of GDP have risen steadily over the past 20 years. And we know that self-care products will contribute to lessen the pressure on healthcare budgets. It will spare health professionals time and improve the status of health of patients and customers. So it does have a significant role in healthcare systems around the globe. Secondly, as Bayer, we also drive collective action across the industry. So we are striving for a World Health Organization resolution on self-care, which will help self-care to be established as a pillar in healthcare systems. So we have made great progress in this regard with the Global Self-Care Federation for the past 2 years under the leadership of our divisional president, Heiko Skipper. And we also intentionally adapt our portfolio to make science-based and safe solutions available in certain communities that come with low-income consumers. Going to slide number 26, we shed a bit of a light on how we actually adapt our portfolio to solve the unmet needs. First and foremost, we actually have to understand our customers and our customer needs. We have done really deep market research in many geographies in low-income communities and among low-income consumers to understand how they live, how they work, and to understand what's really important to them. And of course, health is an outstanding topic for everyone. And that's where actually innovation also comes in. And this can come in many forms. So sometimes it may be a new product. For instance, we have launched a product called Astepro in the United States, which has actually been developed especially for Dollar General. It's a product that we switched from prescription to over-the-counter. It's a nasal spray that's powerful, fast, and steroid-free. And all important, it is available and affordable to low-income consumers that can't miss actually a day of work because they're suffering from allergies. So that is an example of new products for us. Then there are other means of reaching our customers and improving the trajectory towards the 100 million. It's somehow, the question is also, how do we bring our products to markets? Can we tailor make in terms of packet size? And that's what we also do significantly, to a significant extent. We offer small packaging. At the same time, we make sure we have reusable material used for these packages to make these products available to patients and customers around the globe. There is other ways. We have refined go-to-market strategies in many geographies that comes with a different way of pricing our products to make them really affordable for customers. And then, of course, as you see here on the slide, there is health education. So people need to be empowered how to take care of themselves. And that's why we are working with healthcare providers and community health workers in many areas of this world, as well as directly with consumers to really make sure people are making informed decisions and are empowered to take care of their health. So last but not least, of course, and that's probably also learning from the pandemic, we really need to have strategic partnerships with public, private, and civil players to really maximize our impact across the globe. So as you can see, a lot of work is underway, both in terms of portfolio, depth, in-market or go-to-market models and products offered. And this really fuels our optimism that we will reach the 100 million consumers by the end of the decade with our self-care products. Now, moving on to pharmaceuticals and the prescription part of the portfolio and our offerings. And if you go, please, back to the first one, we really, the previous one, we have two major goals. The one is really to reach 100 million women with modern contraception by 2030. There is way more than 200 million women in low and middle income countries that don't have access to modern contraception and family planning services. So that's where we have, as a world leader in women's health, really an opportunity to drive change for women in need. So that's one part. The second one is that, of course, we want to make our innovation accessible across the entire portfolio. So we have introduced a new pricing philosophy for the pharmaceuticals. So we have now defined 3 price tiers across the globe so that we can amalgamate product value and affordability for our products. And with patient affordability programs that are really tailor-made to the national situation, we can even price discriminate within a country, thereby helping even more patients get access to our products. And this actually also yields income. So the commercial sales and the supranational sales in the women's healthcare space are significant in low and middle income countries, as are the patient affordability programs. They really add 3-digit millions to the top line of our division. So going into some depth for the women's healthcare part on the next slide, you can see that we have made some significant progress in the past 3 years, despite difficult waters that we had to maneuver in during the pandemic. So we had stress in the logistics, in reaching out to women in underserved communities and rural areas, but still we were able to grow these numbers. And we are very optimistic that we get to the 100 million goal by the end of the decade. So there's actually 3 things that we do to really to foster that goal and to reach this goal. The one thing is we have expanded our supply. So we have invested nearly 400 million into 2 sites in Finland and Turku and into a brand new site in Costa Rica to really make sure we have the supply for long-acting contraceptives until the end of the decade. Second part is, of course, we have engaged in various partnerships with many institutions in this area, the family planning ecosystem, including UNFPA. We are the first industry partner for UNFPA that has been earmarked as a strategic partner. So we worked hand in hand with public and civil organizations. We also work with the Red Cross in humanitarian settings to really help women in need in this regard. So a lot is on the way. We have also triggered a lot of extra sprint programs in many Asian countries, including India and the Philippines, in order to accelerate the uptake curve even further. Going to the next slide, we really have seen that the activities we have brought en route, not only in the women's healthcare space, but also for the broader portfolio, have paid off. So roughly 20 months ago, we ranked number 16 in the investor-backed Access to Medicines Index. And we said, this is not where we want to be. We want to move up to the top 10. And within 2 iterations of assessment, we have actually made it into the top 10 and now ranked 9 in the Access to Medicines Index. So it's one of the biggest jumps that you could have witnessed over the past few years, and that really makes us proud, but of course we won't rest. So as you see on the next slide, we have also been heralded for some of best practices. One of them actually is our commitment and our work to fight neglected tropical diseases. We are for decades already a key partner for the World Health Organization to eradicate some of these debilitating diseases. The African sleepness disease or sickness is nearly pushed back completely with our help, with the products we provide to the international community and the supranational institutions. So there is more in the area of river blindness, another parasite disease, where we actually partner with public institutions to develop this project and this asset to treat patients in need. We are very engaged in Chagas disease. That's a disease which is more and more endemic in the Americas and which moves up with migration into the US too. We have a product that also helps patients suffering from this very, very severely hampering disease. So, and this, as I said, is summarized on the next slide in the best practices the Access to Medicines Foundation has really carved out, stemming from Bayer and some of its partners. We have been heralded for the work we do in the women's healthcare space. We have now also inserted, and that goes a bit in line with the activities in consumer health. We have stop marks in the development process where we have check-ins and see, are there any specific needs for the development assets when you look at low and middle income countries? Is there anything in particular we need to develop to address unmet needs in these geographies? We have also made moves in the intellectual property area, which will help open up innovation to further patients and institutions, as you can see here. So these are a couple of activities that we have put forward. And as I said, especially on the women's healthcare front, we are really doubling down on our efforts to help women in need. And with this, I'm glad to probably now hand back over to Daniela I hope that the technical issues have been solved so that we can now move into the topic of food security. So thank you, and over to you, Daniela.
Thanks, Klaus. It's good to be back on, and I hope that everybody can hear me. So look, today I'll talk to you a little bit about the realities of food security and health equity, and we just heard the health equity side. So when I look at this, I also think about our growth-focused business models, and we have these in place to not only accelerate our impact in local communities, but also to create shareholder value. So I want to start by diving into the impact of climate change on food security. And we know this is key because we need to ensure people have enough food on their plates, but also the right nutrients to thrive. So when I look at this, our focus is on, our strategy focus is on smallholder farmers. So they really serve as the backbone of food security in low and middle income countries. And they are also a critical customer that we need to win with. So 97% of the world's farmers are considered smallholders. So they're farming on under 10 hectares of land. And while their farms may sound small, their impact is actually quite large. So there are about 600 million of them, and they feed about a third of the world's population. And in low and middle income countries, they feed half of the population. So I just want to paint for a second a quick picture of the typical smallholder farmer to sort of anchor us in this. And if I look at a typical smallholder farmer, she's responsible for feeding and taking care of her own family, as well as ensuring the security of her community. She lives in a rural village, and it takes 2 hours to get to the nearest healthcare facility. And due to rising temperatures, her farm isn't yielding enough food to feed her family and to feed her community. And the higher temperatures are also aggravating her pre-existing cardiovascular disease, making it harder for her to harder for her to attend to her crops day to day. So when I take a step back and look at this, if you multiply this plight by the 600 million smallholders in the world, it's easy to see the impact that climate change is having on food security, and particularly the food security of more than 2.5 billion people. And you can also see that part of the solution lies in health access and health equity. So what Klaus was just talking about. So improving the health and livelihoods of smallholder farmers, it's central to food security, and it's also central to our business strategy. So this is one of the key ways that we are future-proofing our business. So that's where we'll focus much of our time here today. So when we look at smallholder farmers to enable smallholders to really fulfill their roles as guardians of their community's nutrition and their community's livelihoods, we're building a full ecosystem of products and services, and we're aiming to improve the livelihoods of 100 million smallholder farmers by 2030. And in order to effectively impact this customer, we've developed a value chain strategy. So focused on creating pragmatic tools to help them overcome the day-to-day challenges that they face on their farm. So it's really pushed us to think outside the box of our portfolio and outside of what we typically offer to large farms. And it's enabled us to grow and evolve our products and services. And that includes innovative business models and digital solutions across the entire crop system. So our solutions for smallholder farmers are embedded in the overall business strategy. And this delivered around 2.3 billion euros of annual sales last year. And that's a 35% increase on our 2019 baseline. So going forward, we're looking to generate 3.4 billion euros of revenue by 2030. So that's really doubling our 2019 baseline. And that's mainly driven by our planned expansion to other emerging markets throughout Asia Pacific, Latin America, and Africa. And these also, by the way, are markets that are experiencing booming population growth, rapid economic growth, and also that are disproportionately impacted by climate change. So when we look at areas of investment, we're investing in 4 key areas to accelerate our reach and drive business growth. So one is a differentiated portfolio. First, we continue to hone a portfolio tailored to the needs of smallholder farmers. And this is with a focus on innovation and plant breeding to offer high-yielding seeds for key crops such as rice, corn, and select vegetable seeds, as well as advancing more affordable and effective crop protection products. And we know in low and middle income countries, most farmers only have access to generic and lower quality seeds and crop protection. So this has a significant value. The second area we're looking at, and Frank touched on this a bit, is digital farming solutions. So we're committed to creating, testing, and scaling digital farming solutions that help smallholder farmers on remote and rural farms to increase their productivity while also improving their land stewardship. So as a starting point for this, in India and China, we're focusing on digital advisory services, which provide smallholders with insights about market prices, the weather, agricultural advice, and more. And this really helps to reduce the risk of crop loss, improve yields, and ultimately help them farm more sustainably. You also heard about what we just launched with Microsoft as well this week. The third area is around biotech. So we're also advocating for the acceptance of biotechnology and new breeding techniques to help make agriculture be more sustainable and profitable, especially for smallholders who, again, like we talked about earlier, on the front line of climate change and also experiencing just very challenging growing conditions. So for instance, we're a partner in the Telemaize project, which provides genetically modified maize to help farmers in Nigeria overcome drought conditions and pests that threaten their crops, their income, and also food security. And we're expecting several approvals in Africa and APAC in the next few years, and that will also help drive future business growth in these countries. And then the fourth area is value chain partnerships. And this is really key for us. This is about the long-term commitments and the strong partnerships that are helping us to develop an ecosystem that empowers the smallholder farmer end to end. So we're working with public, private, and NGO partner organizations to really establish inclusive business models that help connect smallholders to the agriculture value chain. So I'll give more context to this in a moment, really focusing on our most significant value chain partnership, which is called the Better Life Farming Alliance. So as you see on this slide, through our overall value chain strategy, we supported 52 million smallholder farmers in low and middle income countries in 2022. We are more than halfway to our 100 million goal here. So if we go to the next slide, many of the smallholder farmers we supported were through the Better Life Farming Alliance, which is our signature value chain partnership between Bayer, the International Finance Corporation, Netafim, and more than 30 public and private partners, as well as NGOs. So our ecosystem approach really helps smallholders make their farms commercially profitable and sustainable through a last mile delivery model for farmers that includes education and consulting, adaptive farming solutions, financing, market access, and fair prices. So we've designed this ecosystem to help farmers overcome the barriers they face in cultivating successful farms. This includes affordable financing opportunities and access to markets on which they can sell their products at appropriate prices. That's on top of access to high quality seeds and really practical solutions about products and environmentally friendly cultivation methods. So if I look at 2022, in 2022, we increased the number of Better Life Farming Centers in India, in Indonesia, and in Bangladesh to more than 2,500. And we opened the first centers in Mexico and Honduras. We're also planning further growth in the Asia Pacific and Latin American regions. And we plan to launch our first African center in Tanzania coming up soon. So we've seen that the Better Life Farming Centers can achieve twice the yield and 3 times the impact by using our recommended technology and good practices. So again, that goes back to the heart of livelihoods. We're also, and Frank touched on this a bit, we're also seeing a reduction of water consumption of up to 70% due to good water management practices, and that's including microirrigation, for example, in rice. And then last but not least, we're intentionally investing in women to help them become agricultural entrepreneurs, with an increasing number actually choosing to open Better Life farming centers. And of course, this is critical not only from an equity and inclusion perspective, but also because women's empowerment has a direct impact on the economic growth and health outcomes of their communities. So another aspect of food security that Matthias touched on a little bit at the top is ensuring a nutritious diet, which is essential to health. And when we look at our expertise in health outcomes, our deep consumer understanding, and an extensive portfolio in staple fruits and vegetable seeds, and also science-based supplementation, Bayer is really in a unique position to address this challenge holistically. So we know, for example, that 1 in 3 people in the world suffer from micronutrient deficiencies. And we know that that can cause poor immunity, birth defects, reduced work capacity, learning disabilities, fragile health, and that it often exacerbates the cycle of poverty. So when we look at this, the data shows that 3.5% of global GDP is lost every year due to micronutrient deficiencies. And when we take a step back, that's $3.5 trillion a year. So this is why we launched the Nutrient Gap Initiative. It's a dedicated signature program to expand access to vitamins and minerals for 50 million people in underserved communities by 2030. The initiative directly targets different barriers around the world, and we're developing tailored programs, products, and services to really help bridge this nutrient gap. So we leverage our expertise in our portfolio, and this is the full end-to-end part of this, everything from food on through to supplementation, and also our extensive global footprint, which is everything from our smallholder farming communities to urban centers to provide these adapted solutions. So let me share an example on this next slide of how we're actually executing against this. So what does it look like in a market? Going back to that original smallholder farmer I described, if smallholder farmers and their families aren't healthy, they can't care for their crops. And this leads to a ripple effect across their community. So we piloted the activation of the Nutrient Gap Initiative in rural communities in Indonesia. Over the past 2 years, we've leveraged a last mile inclusive business model and the infrastructure of the 22 Better Life farming centers to bring a comprehensive solution for health and nutrition by joining forces across all of our 3 divisions at Bayer. So we reached 800,000 smallholder farmers and their families, and we trained 44,000 female farmers and farmers' wives on family planning, on self-care, on how to tackle malnutrition, on stunting and food intake for toddlers and pregnant mothers. So we really see this as an opportunity across the board. We also see this as a future growth driver for the company, particularly for our consumer health portfolio, and we tested sales of select self-care products in the Better Life farming communities. So look, as I wrap up with this section, we see that when we're tackling and talking about climate change, it's really not only about decarbonization. It's also about climate response and ultimately the resilience of both human lives and livelihoods. It's about health as a foundation for productive work, and especially for agriculture. So again, we do think we're uniquely positioned when we look across this full spectrum. And at the heart of food security is really the question of health equity, because at the end of the day, we won't end world hunger if we don't have healthy farmers. So on that note, Klaus, I'll pass it back over to you.
Thanks a lot, Daniela. And I think it was not intended, of course, but you see we are live. Big thanks to Klaus and Daniela for the flexibility to run the session. And yeah, with this, I would like to straightly pass over the ball now to Christina. We have heard about how we execute against those commitments to deliver against environmental and societal commitments. Adding on the societal side and also on the governance side, Christina has a couple of very important news to share as well. Christina, please.
Thank you, Klaus, and hello to everybody on the line. It's nice to have you here with us today. So as Klaus just said, I would like to present to you today some of the key elements, actually 3 elements on the backbone of our activities that enable us as a company to steer towards the actions that my colleagues have presented to you today. And the first one I would like to talk to you about is our actions on inclusion and diversity. Bayer, as you have seen, is a company that offers solutions to customers around the world, both on the areas of health and the areas of nutrition. And therefore, for us, it's a business driver, and it's also a responsibility on our social angle to ensure that our 100,000 employees around the world reflect the reality of the world we serve. Not only the 100,000 employees, but most importantly, that the decision makers at the table reflect this reality. I would like to show you today which advances we are doing in this area. And as an example, I would like to focus on gender. And you see that on the left part of the slide, where you see the commitments we've made towards increasing and getting to a 50% gender equality by 2030 around all levels, and by 2025 already in all management levels and 33% on top management. We are making progress on that. You see that we are around 43% on all management levels as of this year and 28% on top management. And yeah, still some numbers to go, but there is a clear commitment and dedication to make this happen. This is an example on gender diversity, but we also have, of course, commitments around any other angle that brings diversity to the table, the diversity that we need to serve the customers, the patients, and the farmers around the world. Structure, nationality, age structure, nationality, experience, LGBTQ+, and people with disabilities. As important as that is, very important is as well, which are the measures that we are putting in place to make this happen. And you see some of these on the right part of the slide, and I would like to highlight some of them to you. For example, leaders in the organization have clear objectives to deliver on increasing inclusion and diversity in our areas, and at the same time, the ability to see and through data, which is the progress that we are making on that, which is the progress they are making through their actions, which is very important driver for making this happen. Further, we have clear activities around talent development, focusing on I&D. We have programs that ensure that equity is in place to make the minorities advance more rapidly so that we can deliver on these objectives. This year also, so last year in 2022, we have assessed the gender pay gap, and for roughly 86% of the workforce, and we have determined that this one is below 2%. And very importantly for us, we have business resource groups around all these angles of diversity to ensure that the employees have a voice and they have direct groups where they can learn, where they can ask, where they can share motivations, and we all advance together. And you see here on the slide the 5 key and global business resource groups that we have established with Grow, Blend, Enable, Pay Afro, and Merge. In this topic, it's important, it's essential for all of us. It's something that is at the core and at the heart of the leaders of Bayer, and we continue to be committed and to make progress towards delivering on our inclusion and diversity objectives. Now, if we move to the next slide, I would like to talk to you about human rights. And 2022 has been an important year for human rights, and I'm going to explain you also why. Bayer is a founding member of the UN Global Compact. That means we were one of the few companies in year 2000 that funded it. And as such, we are fully committed since many years to respect human rights along the value chain that we operate in. As probably many of you know, at the beginning of this year, and being a German-based company with a significant number of employees in Germany, the German Supply Chain Due Diligence Act has entered into force for us as well. So this has given us also a very good opportunity to ensure that our governance around human rights is strong and it's delivering on what we want to see. Which aspects have we established around our governance. You see some of them on the left part of the slide. Our commitments to respect human rights is along the value chain, has been there for many years and continues to be as strong as ever. We have strengthened our policy-based framework with our human rights policy and several other policies, and a very important piece of that has been the update of our supplier code of conduct policy, stating the expectations that we put towards our suppliers around the world. We have established also the role of the human rights officer in the company, and we have extended our external sustainability council with a business and human rights expert. And for the first time, we have launched a web-based training, a virtual web-based training on human rights that is available in 9 languages so that all our employees around the world have access to it. And we have also received, I have to say, a lot of credit for it because it's very clear and it's very close, and it makes clear the responsibility that we have and the action that we can take towards respecting human rights in everything we do. As part of this governance that we have put in place, an important path and an important step for us has been to complete a risk analysis on the areas where our business, because of the nature of the business that we have, would have risks in the areas of human rights. And we have analyzed those along materiality and along saliency, and we have analyzed them also along the complete value chain. And these are the ones that you see on the right part of the slide, on environmental stewardship, right to health, forced labor, child labor, working conditions, and freedom of association. And now we are working along these areas, of course, to ensure that all the mitigation paths are in place and that we have a strong mechanism to address any potential deviation that we could determine. And at the end of the day, human rights is about respecting them, protecting them, and ensuring that we all together as a community make progress to respect the human rights of people. We can move to the next slide. And I would like to show here an overview of the sustainability governance framework that at the end of the day is going to enable us to deliver on everything that you are seeing. We have been constructing that over the last years, and we are now at that level of maturity that enables us to take business decisions that at the same time take the considerations on the sustainability aspects that we have been showing to you. And as some of the examples that you have been seeing throughout the presentation, we can offer solutions that both bring a financial benefit to us and at the same time provide a clear sustainability angle and sustainability benefit for the people and for the planet. We have now a strong basis of regulations and processes with our frame of regulations that applies to the complete company. And as a very important angle for us, the ESG aspects and targets are included on the compensation of the board of management and also of the compensation of the managers around Bayer. In terms of the organizational setup, very important is that our CEO is at the same time the Chief Sustainability Officer. So with this, the leader of our board of management takes also the responsibility to ensure that everything we do is bringing the sustainability progress that we want to see. We have established a cross-divisional sustainability decision committee to make sure that the important decisions that we take them together, considering all the angles from the business and from all the governance aspects that we need to have them in. An area that is very important to us, and Klaus Kunz has been alluding to it at the beginning of the presentation, is to continue to talk to you, continue to report, and continue to drive transparency as a company. And during last year, we have driven some new transparency activities, like, for example, a web-based event that we had on the UN Global Compact. We have also provided reports and update reports about our neonicotinoid activities or GMOs or other different activities that we have in the company, and that they are all available and publicly available to you. And very important to us, we have established a strong independent oversight of our activities. With here, you see some of the key areas: external and internal audits, independent audits, a sustainability council and a bioethics council for the company. And our supervisory board has established an ESG committee dedicated to oversee all the activities that we do in this area. Some of the activities and of the new areas that we have updated this year, you see them on the right side, the reports that I have been mentioned. We have extended our Bayer Science Collaboration Explorer to the United States. We have opened our Open Labs activities, where selected activities that our scientists do in the laboratories are now available to everybody to see, and many other activities that we see, from the supplier conduct update to our offsetting approach to our climate review and many other activities. So all of this together enables us to make sure that sustainability is part of every business decision that we take as a company. And with that, I hand over to Klaus.
Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you so much. We are almost approaching the end of the recorded part. I just wish to give you 3 takeaways, which I hope you really captured during the last 1.5 hours. Would be very important for me. The first one is that I really hope that you take away that we walk the talk. This is the most important takeaway from my perspective. We have made those commitments. We have put an ambition level very high from our perspective, and we make massive efforts to achieve what we have been committing. The second thing, which you may see increasingly if you compare what we say this year relative to the last years, is that we try to interconnect the topics, and that we also want to make it visible and also make use of the fact that climate change, ecosystems, food security, and health equity are interconnected topics, and that Bayer is uniquely positioned to address them because we can actually address the bridges between those issues in a different way than other companies can do. So that would be my second hope, that you have been gaining some additional insights from that presentation. And the last point, and I always end on this, is we want to be very transparent. We have made these efforts, as Christina also has just said, and you will see more from us coming through this year. You will see a lobbying report being published not too far down the line. You will see additional reports that we will publish on crop protection, on the so-called FAO adherence report. We will inform you right up front, of course, and we will organize respective interactions with you, because we want to share the topics that are also on your end of utmost interest, and very often these are the controversial topics. We want to be very open here. We are planning to invite to a farm visit for investors in Germany, more towards autumn, of course, because we want you to see things on the farm. So we have a couple of things in the pipeline of planning for you. And with this, I would like to close the recorded part of the session. And we will move now from here on into the Q&A. Thanks to everybody who joined us on that session. Thank you so much. And now let's look into your questions. All speakers here are to address your questions. So we will all the folks you have just seen in the call are still here, but additionally, we have invited divisional and corporate experts as well to ensure all questions are answered to your satisfaction. On that end, we have Jess Christiansen from Crop Science, we have Frank Strelo from Pharma, and we have Delphine Takis for the climate-related topics. And now, just a second, sorry for this. Our very first question is from Hendrik Schmidt from DWS. What is the question, Hendrik?
Thank you very much. First of all, thanks very much to all the team of Bayer for providing this very thorough update, and you covered quite a range of topics. And it also shows, I think, that you are on track with your progress. And one of the most important aspects I'd like to highlight is here, Bayer continues to listen, and that's one of the most important aspects, I think, we have to stress here, and you're acting up on that. I would have one very specific question in terms of your carbon or decarbonization pathway. And what I have seen also in your annual or sustainability report is that the part that compensation programs are involved in your decarbonization strategy is still going to increase relatively. Could you probably elaborate a little bit on what kind of targets in terms of programs for compensation you are currently working on? I also reckon that you are looking into the LEAVE program in Brazil, to my understanding, and that you plan to expand that prospectively during 2023. But could you probably share a little bit more information about what kind of programs for compensation you are using, and in what way this is complementing your decarbonization of operations, etc.? That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Henrik. And I think we have exactly the best person to answer that question in the call. I would straight on pass this question to Delf. Delf, are you in the line?
Yes, Klaus. So thanks, Henrik, for that question. So first of all, as you know, our primary target is to follow the mitigation hierarchy to reduce our emissions along the science-based targets and to do the offsetting additionally. And there, our target is to, in total, to offset the remaining emissions for our operations until 2030 to become climate neutral. In sense of content, we have the decision that we look for projects that are related to our business, and that means we focus on nature-based solutions. And as you mentioned, the LEAVE program in Brazil, it's quite an important, or not only Brazil, but other tropics and subtropical regions. It's one important piece, but we also look for opportunities that are related, for example, around offsetting in agriculture once they are really available. And that's the general strategy, to base it on nature-based solutions, to keep that link to our business, as we believe this is really an important step for mitigation of climate change.
Thank you, Delf. I hope that is, I mean, if you have further follow-up questions, you even now see the names of the respective experts. So Henrik, even if you want to have more information, we can follow up with this. Thank you, Delf. The second question, I struggle a little bit. I ask for forgiveness. I ask it to Zoe from Federated Hermes. I do not dare to spell out the family name correctly. So Zoe, please.
Thank you.
What's your question?
Thank you, Klaus. So Zoe Disvolberg here from EASA Federated Hermes. First of all, thank you for sharing all this information in a really valuable presentation. I'm particularly interested in the biodiversity work, and thank you very much, Frank, for going a bit in depth. It's really good to see Bayer's involvement in SBTN and TNFD, and to hear that you're developing systems to become more regenerative in terms of soil health and habitats. And I was wondering if Bayer had conducted an assessment of its impacts and its dependencies on biodiversity, and if we could look at these more in depth.
Yeah, maybe Frank, you want to give it a start, and Jess can eventually complement.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you, Zoe. Thank you for the question, and indeed, I think what I can say before handing it over to Jess is that we on purpose want to contribute more now to shaping the definition of regenerative agriculture. For us, regenerative agriculture is actually based on concrete results and KPIs that we want to achieve. It is our definition is really broad in terms of looking at the entire systems, meaning not only at the crops, the yield, the protection, but the water usage, the soil health, but also the biodiversity that we enable in our agronomic systems. And in order to do that, we work more and more towards a more holistic solution offering for our customers, which includes these aspects and which also measures these aspects. And with that, Jess, I hand it over to you, since your team actually is working on that as we speak.
Yeah, thanks, Frank, and great question, Zoe, as well. So, yeah, we're working with several external partners too. As you may be aware, biodiversity is a broad subject. It has a lot of intersectionality with the other sustainable ecosystem focal areas. And so we're working with what is the right measurement for the right KPI in the right ecosystem and geography field-based even, right? So we're working through that. And along with that, we'll be looking at materiality as well and impact. So more to come, and certainly willing to follow up with you too with further questions. But to Frank's point, we're really focused on particular crop systems, the productivity of those, and how do we actually leave the environment better than where it started, even ideally, right? So soil health being a big component of that, habitat restoration, and genetic diversity are three of the key pillars we're really focused on.
Maybe one, Klaus, maybe one last addition. What really comes out of the pilots that we are running in the US, in Argentina, also in Brazil, is that we see a very strong correlation, at least in these agronomic systems, between higher productivity that we enable with our system, but at the same time also an improved soil health, a stronger carbon sequestration, and with that also a healthier ecosystem. So what is really encouraging to see that the target conflicts that I would say in particular in Europe very often is constructed between productivity and sustainability, is we actually do not see back in our data if we move and offer some of these more holistic solutions, because a healthier environment, a healthier soil is actually also very good to drive yields and productivity.
Thank you. That's very helpful. May I ask a follow-up? I'm conscious there might be other questions.
Super.
Thank you so much. So it's really good to hear of the different indicators that you mentioned looking at in terms of regenerative agriculture, such as soil health, water, biodiversity. Do you have any data on these already that you can share on your pilots, or any targets that you have on extending these to more land and more farmers?
Yeah, so we are actually working on this right now. So as I also I think shared with you during my presentation, biodiversity is indeed one of our next areas where we want to share with you our vision, our metrics, our KPIs, and then our ambition. So I just want to ask for a little bit more patience. We are working through this the coming month. First, the next one is water, and then we will follow up on biodiversity later this year.
And I can offer, so if you want to follow up through Klaus, we have some pilots in Argentina, Frank, that we can share some data from. So it's been going on for 10 years now. So it's a really nice data set that's focused on crop rotation, nutrient management, water management. It's got soil health data and metrics, and digital and crop protection and pest management too. So it's a really nice data set that we've been able to then quantify the increase in productivity and overall margin gains for farmers. So happy to share some of that. We've made that publicly available, if that helps, Zoe, to give you a real example, so we can follow up on that one.
All right, I'd be pleased to. Thank you very much, all, and we'll continue to be monitoring this at Bayer. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Zoe. And to be very honest, biodiversity is super high on our agenda. And it's also a question that we are very frequently asked: how are you progressing on biodiversity? For us, it's basically clear this is very material for us, and we have to make massive progress on that space. But on the other hand, if I just may add to the questions, with all the upcoming regulatory requirements that we are going to space in Europe, there will be also a public request on biodiversity data, and we are all together in the same kind of struggling situation at this point of time, that there will be very, very soon the request to provide data, and we all are not yet completely clear which data this actually means. So we will keep you in the loop on any progress we are making in that space, because I think that's an issue which will come down on us altogether. I would like, first of all, to ask if we have another question. The moment we have Patrick from the Allianz in the queue, maybe he goes first.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is Patrick with Allianz. It's always a pleasure to cut off Francois and to get a question in before he gets another one. So sorry for that, Francois, but thank you very much to the Bayer team. Really appreciate what you've laid out today. Also building in directly the strategy with sustainability, showing how they're interconnected and not a choice of one or the other. I think you did a really good job also outlining your programs, your goals, how you're integrating it with incentives and your culture. And actually my question was going towards what Matthias was just touching on, raising the bar for the entire industry, or you could also think of it as in making a more stringent playing field for which then you're best suited to capitalize on. But how are you linking that then to your lobbying activities, your regulatory interactions? I know that you have a lobbying report coming out, so don't want to jump the gun too much, but can you speak about that a little bit for us?
Yeah, Matthias, maybe you want to just take it.
Yeah, Patrick, I'm very happy to take that topic. So let's begin with climate lobbying, the topic CA100. I know it's now a group with much more than 100 investors who are focusing on the whole climate agenda, have brought forward. Here we have a very detailed report that has been recognized, and we're going to broaden that to other activities. I think it's crucial for the crop protection industry to not lobby for the status quo, but to lobby for what's technically possible and to lobby for innovative solutions. And that is what we are striving to do. Our preferred way forward is to raise the bar across the industry. The reason being that we believe that has the biggest and most sustaining impact, but there will be areas where we might stand out. Klaus Kunz just had lots of conversations on the Hill with Republican members of Congress on their quote-unquote vogue, quote-unquote anti-ESG agenda, because we believe that these kind of anti-sustainability approaches are actually harming our customer base. There is not a single group that is economically more harmed by climate change than the growers around the world, and they can see the impact of a rapidly changing climate. Case in point, Jessica spoke about Argentina. We've seen really huge challenges for our customers, for farmers in Argentina, as a result of drought and weather conditions that are clearly linked to climate change. More transparency around that will come out, as Christina mentioned, on our next lobby report. But also, where you see us not beating the drum in the right way, please continue to highlight those areas. We are far from perfect, and sometimes it's complex. So we are not willing to support an agenda that is great for climate, when on the other hand, as a pharmaceuticals company, we are asked to pay the whole bill. That would be something that for Klaus Runge, for example, would be super painful. So we can't support every government initiative. What we will do a good job in, though, is explaining our position.
Thanks, Matthias. Frank has an additional comment.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I think the other angle to it, of course, the playing field in the existing market is one thing, but we also strongly believe that by adding sustainability benefits to our existing solutions, broadening them, that there is a significant additional value pools that we can access. We talked about carbon, we talked about water, we talked about how overall these solutions drive yield, productivity, and at the same time reduce the environmental footprint. We haven't talked a lot about biological solutions here today. For instance, technologies that will replace synthetic fertilizers to some extent. So we have that deep conviction that by integrating sustainability dimensions and benefits into our solutions, actually the whole value pool and the market that we can access is a lot bigger. And that's a significant, of course, motivator for us as well to, as I said in my presentation, do the right thing, but at the same time also create a lot more value for our company.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank and Matthias. We have currently no more questions. It's the last chance to ask additional questions. I would, in the meantime, just like to make one point. Zoe has one more question. Okay, sorry, one more question.
Thank you very much. It's Zoe again from ESG Federated Hermes. And this question touches on chemicals, because I'm conscious that Bayer has increased its portfolio of hazardous substances from 15 to 22, is my understanding, and that 2 of these substances are persistent. And I was wondering what's Bayer's thinking behind this, and any risks linked to the increase of these hazardous substances? Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. I'm not entirely sure what definition you are using now. Let me maybe just quickly just share with you what our current policy is. First of all, we have been the first company that took a decision to step out of the so-called TOX class 1 products, or those products that the World Health Organization classifies in category 1A and 1B, and we did this in 2012 already. Now, about 6 years ago, we also took the decision that we only sell products that and active ingredients that are registered in at least one OECD country. So we are not selling any products globally that are not registered and green lighted by at least one OECD country. So in that regard, we do have actually, from my perspective, at least the most modern and also, as I showed also and shared with you, the most environmental portfolio, and we certainly will continue to do so. And different to some other competitors, we are not moving back, and we are not seeking our solutions in the past, but are clearly committed to develop new products also with new approaches and safer chemical solution for the future.
I think so. We would be happy to offer a follow-up session on the entire complex of crop protection and safety. If you would be interested, would be happy to do so. Okay.
Mm-hmm. That would be much appreciated. Thank you very much for this information.
Yeah, if that's okay, then I would give the last question to Hendrik. He has a follow-up as well.
Now, I hope I'm live on air. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Sorry, but there is indeed a follow-up to my initial question with regard to your compensation programs. I mean, the one thing that in the sustainability report is outlined is your participation within the LEAF program or the LEAF coalition, which is duly acknowledged, and also that 450,000 tons of your greenhouse gas emissions are compensated. But coming back to that point, what is the proportion actually also going forward within your decarbonization pathway on the one hand until 2030 that you will need to compensate for, and what are the other initiatives throughout which you will make use of these compensation programs? Because of course these programs have had a highlight or a high time over the course of the past years, but it has also shown that not all of them are actually holding what they promise. And thus we are quite cautious about what are actually compensating programs that are worth the name it, and so that we're not ending up in a situation where you indeed report like 450,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions being compensated through such programs, but actually you have to discount them because the quality of these programs is simply not given. That would be my follow-up. Thank you.
I think that's a super topical and valid question. I think that quality of offsetting is absolutely crucial, but I would give it again to Delf to comment on this.
Thanks for the follow-up question, Henrik. So in sense of volume, it's that you, as you can see, we have first the reduction target of -42%, and there will be remaining emissions in our own operations of a little bit more than 2 million tons. So in 2030, the compensation volume per year would be around 2 million tons. In sense of program, you're right, LEAF is one of the big programs, and you're fully right also with the controversies around carbon reduction or offsetting programs. What we do there is we are extremely transparent. So we have actually published a whole report on our activities on compensation, including even the individual projects that are included. And we know some of them have that risk, what you just described. That's the reason why we do a constant review of our offsetting. And for example, Matthias is a member of that steering committee where we regularly review, are these programs that we selected at our best knowledge at that point in time still relevant if I look forward? One example, what we also are doing is that we invest and start to invest portions into newer technologies. So topics like biochar that are not at scale available at this point in time, and also at a very different price point, but we say we want to foster these other types of offsettings, but that are still also connected to our business, as biochar is also built in the end of nature-based solutions in a longer perspective. There will be still a remaining risk, and that's what we cover through that governance program, what was mentioned. At the moment, beyond LEAF, the purchasing of activities are market offers, and typically out of forest programs. The other part that we are intending to do is, as you know, also Bayer has planning to do its carbon farming initiative. And for example, that generates credits where we really have a full control on the quality. That could also become part of our portfolio once it's available, and we really have that full control on quality of these offsets.
Thank you, Delf. Thank you, Delf. Unfortunately, we have to stop. We come to the end. I just want to say two things before giving the word to Matthias for closing. We are incredibly thankful for your questions and for your feedback and for your permanent challenge that you give us, because you point us in the right directions. And you ask the questions that we need to be able to address. If we can't answer your questions, we indeed have a problem. So big thanks for your questions, not only in this call, but in all the other interactions that we have with you. And also big thanks for your engagement, because it's very important for us that we can show to our leadership that ESG matters. It's very important for us. And with this, I would like to say thanks for the entire session and give the closing remarks to Matthias.
Yeah, Klaus, many thanks to you, and also many colleagues who have been working really hard on making not only the session happen, but also I've been working feverishly on our sustainability report. I talked about the three big challenges where we believe we have a real lever to do something. The 55 billion tons of carbon, where I believe as Frank is more successful in driving innovation in agriculture, we can really significantly contribute to reducing carbon. Health inequity, half of the humanity not having access to basic health. And then, of course, the food security challenge, where we have 350 million people who don't know what to eat in the coming week. From that vantage point, what you will see year to go is more from us that combines these challenges with business solutions that Bayer will present, be it through innovative new solutions or refocusing of our business. You will see that in crop. You will see that also across the other two divisions. By April of next year, you will have a say on pay. So in other words, the question how sustainability will be integrated into our remuneration, what are the kind of metrics we will put forward to you, will be a big topic. And I also hope that before that moment, you will have the opportunity to see how sustainability is integrated in our next Capital Markets Day. If you go back to 2018, our last Capital Markets Day didn't really fully include the sustainability strategy you see today. So one of the big topics for our team is to work really hard on ensuring that we can demonstrate that our intent of fully integrating sustainability in the business strategy is also being delivered against. I'm very grateful for you being here, for your questions, and also for a lot of good advice you gave us over the course of the last 4 years. And really want to invite you to continue to do that. Your pushback sometimes has really given us momentum to move in a good direction, and your partnership certainly has helped us to make some quite difficult choices. So thanks for that. Klaus, thank you for leading and moderating this. And the only thing that we are not happy about is the WLAN at all moments, but Daniela, thank you for plowing through that as well. And I wish you all an almost happy Friday.